Democrats stake their entire future on an illegal immigrant they've dubbed Maryland Man. Former President Biden spoke in his first appearance since Trump took office. And the female celebrity crew who took a space ride in an automated rocket over the weekend is angry that people are calling it a space ride. I'm Tony Kinnett from the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, syndicated nationally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. After the President of the United States, Donald Trump, as well as El Salvador President Bukele, announced that they would not be picking up Kilmar Abrego Garcia and moving him from his El Salvador prison cell back into the United States, the media began dubbing this particular illegal immigrant who lived in the United States for several years, Maryland Man. These would include outlets from CBS to ABC to Politico to the Associated Press and many, many more, not calling him an illegal immigrant living in Maryland, but Maryland Man, to insinuate that this, in fact, was a legal resident of the United States, which he was not. Two courts, of course, found that this was likely to be an individual associated with the MS-13 gang, and as a citizen of El Salvador has a right to keep him in the country once he is there. Democrats in the House and the Senate have not taken that particular approach. Representative Jake Auchincloss from the Massachusetts 4th District tweeted out that habeas corpus is the cornerstone of Americans' freedom, and then if Trump will not return him, the judiciary should send the U.S. Marshals to go and get him. Democrat senators took a slightly different but similarly combative strategy. Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat of Maryland, has announced that he will be likely heading down to El Salvador to protest for the release of this illegal immigrant and El Salvadori citizen from El Salvadori prison.
I saw the comments of President Bukele, and I look forward to meeting with him. I've requested to meet with him. I reached out to the ambassador here to ask to meet while he's here. But I've also made clear if we can't meet here, I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained. A Maryland man who's the father of three in a notorious prison in El Salvador. And I believe the president of El Salvador will recognize why it's important to allow him to return to the United States of America, because it is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador. Of course, President Trump could have just said, bring him home. Of course, he could have done that. But this is an administration that has lied about Mr. Abrego Garcia, right? The vice president of the United States tweeted out that he had a criminal record. That was a lie. They're just lying. They've gotten caught lying. They don't want to admit it. And they have an obligation to bring him home. But I will say the president of El Salvador should not now take it upon himself to say that he is detaining him for one more day, because that is kidnapping. I understand that the attorney general said that we would provide a plane to bring him home. So all the president of El Salvador has to do now is hand over and release an innocent man and let him come home to his family.
A new report from Axios suggests that Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey, is in the process of planning a trip to El Salvador along with other Democrats. It's not clear yet which Democrats might be planning the international trip, but House Democrats have asked the Republicans to authorize a special trip down to El Salvador. Senator Adam Schiff of California has lambasted the entire affair, going on a long rant calling this a constitutional crisis.
The constitutional crisis is here. And we saw it take place inside the Oval Office in a meeting between Donald Trump and the president of El Salvador. Here's the president of El Salvador saying that he will not return a man named Kilmar Abrego Garcia, wrongfully sent out of the United States in violation of a court order.
Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous.
That's right. He says it's preposterous to suggest that he could return a man that was wrongfully sent to his country and is now languishing in a maximum security prison.
Schiff did say incorrectly at several points throughout the video that this individual, this Garcia, belongs in the United States, that he has a right to be in the United States, as well as the United States being his home. None of those are true because this is an individual who snuck into the country, who evaded Border Patrol to make it to where he was staying, and then later, after he was caught, then claimed asylum. This is not an individual who went to a specific port of entry and begged for asylum before he was then allowed into the country. Former President Joe Biden spoke in public for the first time last night since he was no longer the president of the United States, at an event in Chicago, Illinois, on the matters of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other forms of welfare from the federal government. Biden had a bit of a rough start, appearing to begin his speech before the introduction music had ended. Not really quite sure whether or not the former president was aware that music was even blasting over the loudspeakers.
Thank you. So good to be here. Shotgun shack to the Superdome. Who deserve help and paid for it.
The former president then made some disturbing comments and claims about not seeing any individuals who are black in Scranton, Pennsylvania, at least through the 4th grade, calling these individuals colored kids.
And I'd never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time I was only going in the 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by.
Given former President Biden's previous claims that he grew up going to black churches, that he grew up in predominantly black neighborhoods, that he spent a lot of his time in his earlier life around people of color, at least as he claimed, it's rather interesting that he would make a large example about not seeing any black individuals in a town that he grew up in, at least through the latter part of elementary school. This is the same Joe Biden that we were told would be mentally capable enough to be president of the United States for another 4 years, and that it was not because of a cognitive or mental decline, according to White House press secretary at the time, Karine Jean-Pierre, that the president was stepping down from his campaign. And the all-female celebrity crew who flew up in an automated, fully autonomous capsule to just 6 kilometers above the quote-unquote border for where space begins from the Earth's atmosphere, that crew is rather unhappy with some of the comments, some of the criticisms, which have said that just because they rode in a fully automated capsule to space that they had no control over or no training to operate, that this didn't make them astronauts and that they were simply going along for a space ride.
What do you think when people say, oh, it's frivolous? Number one, they call it a ride, which I find very irritating because they never say men went for a ride. What do you say to people who think that this was frivolous or just a ride? You know, I think the message that it sends is very, very powerful. And the people that say that, by the way, weren't there.
Pop star Katy Perry and the other celebrities which were present did not have any kind of control over the capsule whatsoever. Additionally, the rocket that made it to space just barely made it to space. It essentially took a straight vertical descent, kind of lost momentum at about 6 kilometers above the Kármán line, which is considered the minimum distance needed to be in space. And the Kármán line is also the name of the capsule that the ladies went up in. Once they were up there, though, they had some very important astronaut-like conversations. Check it out.
1, 2, 3... Taking up space! Woo! Oh, the moon! You guys, I have to tell you, look at the moon. That's amazing. Wow, look at the blue line. Oh my gosh. Oh my goddess. Wow.
Yes, you absolutely did hear one of the individuals saying, quote, "Oh my goddess," end quote. Upon their return to the Earth, Katy Perry got out of the capsule, pointed to the sky, and then kissed the ground. Before you go, head down to the description and click the link to subscribe to both this show and the Tony Kinnettcast. That subscription really helps us out. And join us tonight at 7 p.m. where we're going to be taking a look at the breaking story of the Trump administration recommending investigation and possible prosecution of New York Attorney General Letitia James. It's going to be a wild one. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Top News in 10. Take care.